you have patterns that you trade or systems that you trade, one of the things that I encourage you to do, a phenomenal exercise, is take your best pattern, take your best system, and run a study in which every time the setup occurs, fade your setup and go the other way. Just test it and see what happens. You will be surprised at what you learn. You might find an unbelievable pattern out of just doing the opposite of something you've done for a long time. Today, we're going to talk about turning our beliefs around. To be successful as a trader, it is important to examine our beliefs to see if our beliefs are useful or not. This is one of the greatest things I got from Dr. Tharp. We want to examine our beliefs and not judge them as good or bad, but actually look at them to see if they're useful or not. And one of our core objectives to be happy, to be successful as a trader, to have joy in our life is to get rid of beliefs that are not useful, to get rid of beliefs that are limiting and replace them with beliefs that are useful. One interesting thing is the beliefs that we are most likely to defend, most likely to argue, and most likely to refuse to hear opposing views are the beliefs that actually require the most examination. When we have strong emotional charges to a belief, there's usually an underlying fear related to that belief. We're protecting ourselves in some way. Going through belief examination helps us to determine why we have fear and to determine whether that fear is warranted or not. So an exercise I encourage you to do is to take a belief that you hold a strong emotional charge to and see if you can make the opposing argument. See if you can separate yourself, even if it's just for a moment. If you could separate yourself and you could look at it the other way, if you had to argue for the other side, what would you argue that would make sense to you? What would you debate that would make sense to you? So when we examine beliefs, we actually are able to look at the other side. And by doing so, we actually can start to come to a common ground. This exercise gives different perspectives, different understanding, and oftentimes compassion. Now, let me show you. Here's a chart. You can look at this chart and you take a minute. Many of you are technicians. Look at this chart and tell me what you think. What do you see? So let me show you another view of this chart and look at this chart. This is actually the same chart, just flipped. The first version, the chart's upside down. Second version, it's correct. This chart is of the Australian dollar with weekly bars. Now, what's interesting is we can have a very different perspective just by turning the chart upside down. One of the first technical classes I took was at the Illinois Institute of Technology, and there was a trader, a technician, who came in and taught about technical analysis. And he talked about sometimes what he'd do is he'd just take the chart, he'd throw it across the room on the floor, and he'd look at it. And he would walk around in a circle around the chart and look at it and see to give him a different view of what's going on, different perspective. So one of the teachers I learned from and studied under was a trader named Charles Drummond. And Drummond was brilliant. One of the things that Drummond used to do is he would teach his students, and then whatever trade the student wanted to make, let's say that you wanted to buy the Australian dollar. Charles would say, you want to buy it? Okay, I'll sell it to you. I'll take the other side. So here you've done all this work to research a pattern. You have confidence and conviction of your pattern, and you're going to step out and buy it. And Drummond said, okay, I'll take the other side. Now, for Drummond to do this, one, he didn't have attachments. We as traders tend to have attachments to our trades, which is not a good thing. We need to be able to step back and see our trades for what they are. So Drummond was masterful at not being attached. And then the second thing he had was outstanding monitoring skills. If he went short, then he would monitor what he was seeing. And he might flip and get long pretty quickly, but he would start short, he would monitor, and then he would use his monitoring skills to flip the position. No attachments and superior monitoring skills. Now, this leads me to the next point. So for you, when you have patterns that you trade or systems that you trade, one of the things that I encourage you to do, a phenomenal exercise, is take your best patterns, take your best systems, and run a study in which every time the setup occurs, fade your setup and go the other way. Just test it and see what happens. I did this with one of my best patterns. And what was so interesting was out of my research came an amazing pattern that does the opposite, that fades my best pattern. It made my best pattern better because I understood my best pattern now in a nuanced way that I did not understand before that made it even better. So I got two patterns out of it, and my original pattern was even better. This could only happen because I was willing to do the opposite, to step back from my beliefs and re examine them. So I encourage you to go through this exercise. You will be surprised at what you learn. You might find an unbelievable pattern out of just doing the opposite of something you've done for a long time. So that's our tip for Trader Tip Tuesday, and I'll see you next week. Have a great week.